Christmas was a good one, and I'm excited for the new year, but as it turns out, 2024 has one or two more tricks up its sleeve before the calendar rolls over. I'll tell you all about it coming up next. Welcome back to Ready Budget Go. My name is Drew, and on this channel, we talk about cash budgeting, saving money, and achieving our financial goals. If that sounds like something you're interested in, please consider subscribing, hit the like button, and leave me a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. Today, what I'm doing is updating my budget for the third week of December, which for me runs from the 20th through the 26th. So this is the week that obviously would include Christmas. And as such, there was quite a lot of extra spending that I didn't anticipate. I'll get to that in a little bit, but what I'm doing right now is just filling in the bills items that came in this week. And since I already know what my spending is going to be in bills for the rest of the month, I'm just going in and filling in all of those too. There's a couple of changes here. You'll see that I wrote in a 0 next to Log and Jotter, and I also wrote in a 0 next to the charity contribution. I decided to cancel my Log and Jotter subscription just because I have quite a few of those notebooks already, and so I'm set for a while. And I also canceled the charity contribution for an entirely different reason. One of my credit cards announced that starting next year, they will allow you to use your accumulated rewards to donate directly to charity, and when you do that, they match it 100%. So that is a much more effective way for me to get money to the charity and to get more money to the charity versus making a direct contribution like this. So I've decided that I am going to cancel that here so that come January, I can funnel the money that I would normally give them through my credit card rewards and essentially get a 100% match. So because I know what my bills are for the rest of the month, I've gone in and totaled that. I also received my $100 cell phone credit from my work, which came in earlier than it usually does in the month, but because it is a holiday at the end of the month, the person who does that just went ahead and processed it early. So now I'm going over to the cash flow tracker. And again, this is more or less like a check register. So this is anything that comes into or goes out of my checking account every month. So I'm starting by entering the cell phone reimbursement here, which was a credit of $100. And then I will enter in all of the outgoing transactions, which there weren't that many this week. I've made credit card payments already to all of my credit cards twice in this month. And so I didn't do that again. And I did take $100 out of the ATM for cash spending. And then I had a payment come out for Affirm, which is my cell phone hardware that I pay every month, $42.79 like clockwork. And I also had the contribution to my Roth IRA for $2,000, which got me to fully funded for the rest of the year. And I did that because I had the money in my checking account and there was a downturn in the market. So I pounced just to take advantage of that. So now it's time to enter in all of the monthly expenses. And this is where things get a little bit hairy. And I apologize for cutting off at the bottom here. I hope I don't miss too many of those transactions. I think I will push the book up eventually. But for right now, I'm entering in all of the different spending that I did. This has a lot of how I guess I would categorize them as non-regular expenditures. So, for example, this transaction here on the 20th for a vending machine, that was at the Seattle Ferry Terminal because I was going to get my hair cut and I was desperately hungry. I hadn't eaten anything all day. So they have a vending machine that had fresh food, and so I bought a sandwich out of there. And then when I was on the ferry, I spent another $10 in the galley. That was for a soft drink and an order of tater tots, I think. $10. That is the economy that we're living in. So at any rate, so there's also going to be a self-care expense in here for the haircut itself. And I did buy some candy. I've mentioned a couple times that there's a candy store near where I get my haircut that has fantastic candy, so I did go there. And then I had to fork over a king's ransom to the ferry system for a fare and all of that. So, yes, there are places where I could get my hair cut locally. It would end up costing about the same, to be honest. Haircuts where I live are just very expensive. If you want a good one, bad haircuts can be had anywhere, but then if I get a bad haircut, I'm going twice as often. So I would rather have a good haircut that's going to last me 8 weeks than a bad haircut that I'm going to need to go in every 3 or 4 weeks to have it essentially redone. So, in addition to those expenditures, I've also got some leftover Christmas expenses. You'll see that on the next page. I had to essentially rebuy one of the gifts that I bought because it was the wrong size. And the place where I bought it from, it was handmade in another country. So it's not really cost effective to return it just because the freight, I mean, it just kind of is what it is at this point. But I did need to buy it again to get the right size. So essentially, I get to pay for that gift twice, but it was about $55. It's not going to be the end of the world. And it's important to me that the recipient of that gift gets something that they can actually wear or use because it's a special person in my life. So I'm going through and writing in all these other transactions. There's going to be a lot of transactions for food. And the reason for that is because I spent Christmas at a hotel. I didn't go anywhere this year per se. I stayed kind of locally, about maybe 30 miles from where I live. And I did that for a number of reasons. I didn't pay anything for the hotel out of pocket. I cashed in rewards points for a full 5-night stay. So I saved a bundle doing that. But I spent a lot on food, and the reason is number one, the hotel has a restaurant in it, but what I didn't know is that they weren't going to have a cook for my entire stay. So that was kind of no longer an option, which was a surprise to me. So that pushed me out into essentially getting delivery or restaurants. Now, the place where I was staying was not in an area where restaurants would stay open during the holidays. Most of them were closed. A couple of them were open here or there, but some of them weren't restaurants that I wanted to visit. Some of them were really expensive. Some of them were like bars that also didn't have their cook on duty for the holidays. So I ended up getting a lot of delivery and convenience store fare, which it's not the worst thing in the world. Price wise, it's going to be about comparable to a sit down meal because even though I'm not paying for table service, I did tip the courier as well because it's the holidays and they're out there in the weather and the cold and away from their families to earn money. So I supported them as best I could. And so that's where all these transactions are coming in. And they spill off into another page from here. So it was really quite a bit of spending that I didn't necessarily not anticipate it in that I knew that I was going to be spending a lot for restaurant food this week. Like that was a given when I booked the hotel room. I just didn't know that I would be doing it quite so much. I mean, when you have to order in breakfast, every day for 5 days, that really, I think, is one of the things that kind of pushed me over because that was another $20 a day that I hadn't really planned on spending. At the hotel, because I have status, I get a $10 food and beverage credit every day, but I couldn't really use it. So that kind of wiped out breakfast. So a lot of DoorDash and a lot of convenience store fare. While I'm filling in all of these, I want to talk a little bit about how things are going to be changing next month. So for this week, I did not stuff my letterbucks. I had only 4 of them. I did spend some cash, but I just wasn't getting a whole lot of ones and change. And so starting in January, I'm going to essentially abandon all of the categories that I had defined just because I learned that they weren't really working well. So for example, the C-Bucks, I've been saving up for candy, which, like when I go to a barber, well, I didn't have that fully funded yet. But I still wanted the candy. So I ended up spending out of pocket. So now I have all these ones in the savings challenge, And by the time I'm ready for my next haircut, it'll probably be overfunded. And so that was one reason. And like the dog treats, the D, I don't know when I'll next need to buy those. So I was going to have to come up with another D category for those. And I thought, I think I'm just going to take a page out of Save with Judy's playbook. And instead of doing all these different categories like a lot of people do, I am going to put it all toward one big goal. And I am not quite sure what that's going to be yet. I have some ideas. I kind of talked about it in one of my recent videos, but I just need to give that a little bit more thought before I delve into it. But I'm going to keep doing the trackers. I'm going to keep tracking my ones and you know funding those. But where the money is going to change. And I'm only going to do it once a month. I'll do it at the end of the month, and it'll be its own standalone video. So look forward to that next year. That will also make the weekly check-ins a little bit faster. I haven't really gotten a whole lot of feedback on how many people like having the letterbox on a weekly basis versus a monthly, but the one that I did, the big stuffing that I did when I first launched the channel, got a pretty good number of views for a brand new channel. So I think that's going to be the way to go. Other things that I'm going to do in 2025 different, I'm going to give myself $250 a week instead of $200. I think, one person should be able to make it on $200, but inflation and the cost of living where I am tells me different. I have been over most weeks. Now, this week I went over by a lot, and we'll see that here shortly when I start totaling things up. But this was kind of an abnormality. The other thing that affected how I spent this week is that I found out a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, something like that, that I was going to get a bonus at the end of the year. And that was $500 with a gross up, which means that the net amount that I would get from my company would be $500. They would cover all of the taxes that would be taken out. So, with that in mind, I kind of allowed myself to spend a little more than I otherwise would have. I maybe ordered a more expensive thing off the menu. I could have reined this in if I really wanted to, but it was the holidays and I had the bonus money coming. And so I thought, okay, I'm just gonna. And the other thing is that I met my goal for the year of fully funding my Roth IRA. If I hadn't fully funded my Roth IRA, then I would have directed, how much ever I needed to toward that. And then life happened. So coming up here shortly, if I'm not doing it already, no, I'm doing it now. I'm entering in a transaction for an airline for a plane ticket. So I'm going to Oregon next week to help out a family member who's going through a rough time. It was something that I was asked to do by another member of the family, and of course I said yes, because we're family, we do for one another. And so that is an unexpected expense that I am going to have to pay for. Now, I'm only covering the transportation costs. The hotel costs, again, I will be paying for with points, as I always do. So nothing out of pocket for hotels. And fortunately, this hotel that I'm going to be staying at comes with free breakfast. So hopefully their cook isn't on vacation. So now what I'm doing is I'm just comparing the number of transactions that I have here versus what I've written down from all of the different credit cards that I carry. I make sure that I've got all of those tracked and that everything that I've logged they're represented in the tracker. So now that I've done that, it is time to get out the calculator and, well, actually, first I'm going to color code them because I do have some other categories here. I have the Christmas expenses, and I also have the emergency expenses, which is the family situation. Even though it's not really an emergency, that's just how I'm kind of classifying it. So I will color code all of the weekly transactions in purple in a moment, but first I'm going to make sure that I go through and I color code the Christmas transactions and then the emergency transactions. So Christmas is in yellow. I've only got a few of those, maybe a couple. I had to buy some additional wrapping supplies and then also the purchase of that gift again. So I've done that, and now I am going to go through and highlight the two emergency category expenses, the unexpected expenses for the airline ticket and the train ticket. So now that I've got those, I will go through and highlight the rest in purple for the weekly transactions. Way more transactions than I would have in a normal week. In fact, this is more than I would have in 2 weeks. And now I'm debating, do I want to use green or purple? But I decide on the purple since it was already open. So here we go. So it's not really something that I'm disappointed in, but I'm also not necessarily happy about either. It's it's way over what I'd given myself for the week, but again, I knew that I had the income coming in to cover it, so it wasn't really a question of, is this going to make me go negative? Is this going to make me carry a balance on my credit card or have to tap my emergency fund? Because at the time, I didn't think that it would. Of course, now, life throws a curveball. I, as I said earlier, 2024 has been kind of a difficult year. It's had its high points for sure. The one of them being launching this channel and getting to interact with all of you wonderful people in the comments, and hear your inspiring stories and things like that, and launching my Etsy shop. And I'm immensely proud of that. I am so happy that I finally got up the courage to do it. It has really meant a lot to me. But by the same token, I have faced a number of challenges, both in my personal life and my professional life this year. And so I'm really looking forward to turning the page. New Year's is one of my favorite holidays because, for whatever you went through in the year before, it's a chance to wipe the slate clean, to start over, essentially, if you need to, and look forward to better days ahead. I think some people struggle with New Year's just because it is the passage of time. You think about, wow, we're going to be in 2025 already. I remember when I was growing up, the very first ID card that I got from the state expired in 2003. And that just sounded so futuristic to me because this was the mid-90s and I had no concept of what a year after the year 2000 would be like. And here we're talking about 2003, and now we're talking about 2025. So it's unfathomable to my younger self, but here we are. So I'm also going to write in my weekly cash spending, which was about $45. I can't even remember how much I spent. It wasn't much in cash this week. It was $45 because I had 30 left in cash, and then I spent 25. So I spent 25 today. So sorry. So no, I had 55 in cash. Anyway, I can't remember. The way it worked out, I had enough that when I spent whatever I spent today, it worked out that I had spent 45 last week, because I've still got a little bit of cash left from what I took out of the ATM, and then what I spent last week, and then what I spent today. So I'm a little bit behind. I'm recording this on the 27th, and normally I would have recorded this yesterday on the 26th, on the last day, but because I was coming home from my trip, it took a little while longer. So there's the total, $601.21. Not fantastic by any stretch, way more than I had given myself for the week, even knowing that I was going out of town, even knowing that I was going to be relying on restaurant food. But, ultimately, I don't really regret any of that spending. It's just kind of the way things worked out. So now what I'm doing is I'm going through and I'm totaling up all of the spending in the Christmas category. This was a sinking fund, but not really, kind of a stockpile that I'd given myself at the start of the month for how much more I would spend on Christmas this month beyond what I'd already spent. So I'm just going to note down the total here. I apologize that the calculator's not in view. I had zoomed in and used a darker pen in hopes that it would make the writing clearer, because sometimes I watch the old videos back and I can't even read my writing because the lighting's not good or it's too zoomed out. So I'm still experimenting, trying to see what works, and I think I've got the camera set up correctly, and then just like I did there, my hand moves the book, or I bring in the calculator and it's not all the way in the screen. So I'm just going to write in the total here with what is known, and I will finish up that sheet for the week, and that will do it for this week's check-in. So while I thought the end of December would be smooth sailing, it turns out that the waters are a bit more turbulent than I expected. All I can say is that it makes me lots more optimistic that 2025 will be a better year. In case you missed the launch video that I posted on Christmas Day, I've got a new savings challenge book up now on Etsy. It's superhero themed and has 15 challenges in it. Some are scratch off, some are roll and save, others are color and save. There are 6 heroes and 6 villains for you to meet and to contend with. And I'll link the video for the launch down in the description below, and I'll try to put it at the end card as well. If you'd like to check it out over on Etsy, bear in mind that my entire shop is 25% off now through the end of the year. In fact, that sale runs through New Year's Day, with no coupon code required. If you've had your eye on anything over there, or if you're interested in getting your hands on this book, now is a great time to score a terrific deal. I want to thank you for spending some time with me today, and especially for getting through to the end of the video. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop a comment down below. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing if you're new. Until I see you again in the next one, take care.